My husband said his affair was just texting, harmless words. So I decided, if they were so harmless, he wouldn't mind if I shared them with everyone, projected onto a 20-foot screen in the middle of his mother's annual family barbecue. If he says it's just texting, let's see what the whole family thinks when they read every single word. My name is Ariana Hill. I am 36 years old. I live in Fairview, North Carolina, and I am not a fool. I am not the kind of woman who lets her life crumble while she politely ignores the dust. I am, however, the kind of woman who lives in a white 2-story colonial with perfect landscaping, who drives a pristine white SUV, and who manages high-stakes branding projects for Nova Vista Brand Studio without ever breaking a sweat. On the outside, we were the suburban American dream, the kind of family you see in a brochure for a gated community. We had the requisite backyard, the top-of-the-line grill that Tyler, my husband, used maybe twice a summer, and the polite wave for the neighbors. We were stable. We were comfortable. We were a lie. Tyler is 38. He works in logistics, a vague but impressive-sounding job at Carolina Metro Logistics. His office is downtown, which used to mean a predictable commute. For the last 6 months, it had meant overtime. It meant dinners gone cold on the stove. It meant him slipping into the house well after I'd put our daughter to bed, smelling faintly of something that wasn't me. It was a perfume, something overly sweet and floral, the kind of scent that tries too hard. And then there was the phone, his phone, which once lived on the kitchen counter screen-up, had recently developed a need for privacy. It was always, face down, a black, silent rectangle of glass on the granite, as if placing its screen up might cause it to spontaneously confess its sins. Tyler comes from a specific kind of family. The Hills are coastal Southern stock. They are a family that believes deeply in God, sweet tea, and the absolute, unbreakable sanctity of the annual summer barbecue. His mother, Margaret, holds this event at her sprawling, slightly too rustic farm out in Riverbend. It is not an invitation. It is a summons. Everyone must be there. It's a command performance, a way for the matriarch to count her flock and pass judgment on their life choices. I tried to hold our life together with both hands. I am good at managing. It's what I do. My days had a rhythm I refused to let falter. I'd get up at 6, get our 8-year-old daughter, Harper, dressed and fed. Harper is the one bright, uncomplicated light in this. I'd braid her hair, listen to her chatter about a spelling test or a fight with a friend, and feel a surge of pure, uncomplicated love. I am a good mother. I would never, ever let this poison touch her. I'd drop her at school, kiss her forehead, and then drive to my office, at Nova Vista. I was in control. I ate salads at my desk, managed timelines, and put out fires for clients. I was efficient. I was valued. Then I would drive home, switch gears, and cook dinner. Something healthy, something balanced. I'd set the table, and then Tyler would come home late, or not, and I would feel the air leak out of the room. He'd eat while scrolling through his phone, and when I'd ask about his day, he'd give me one-word answers. We had become roommates, 2 people sharing a mortgage and a child. But here's the thing he seemed to forget. It wasn't really his mortgage to share. The house, this beautiful, solid colonial in Fairview, was not a Hill property. My late father, Howard Ryder, was a pragmatic man. He'd seen too many women in his family lose everything in a divorce. When he died, he left me this house, but he left it inside the Hill Ryder Family Trust. The terms were ironclad, written by a lawyer who charged by the hour and clearly enjoyed his job. The property, the land, and the house itself could only be passed down to his direct bloodline, me, and then Harper. My mother had drilled it into my head years ago, long before Tyler and I even got married. Ariana, she'd said, holding my hands, don't ever let anyone touch what your grandfather left you. It's not just a house. It's your independence. I'd always kept that in mind. It was my safety net, the emergency exit I hoped I'd never need. Lately, I'd been thinking about that exit a lot. The little cracks were becoming impossible to ignore. 2 weeks ago, a group text from my mother-in-law, Margaret, had lit up my phone. It was the official summons for the barbecue, set for 3 weeks from Saturday. But this one had an odd postscript. And everyone get excited. This year's barbecue is going to be very special. We're expecting lots of wonderful changes for the family. I stared at the text. Changes. What kind of changes? It sounded less like a party announcement and more like a corporate reshuffling. It had an unsettling air of finality, as if a decision had been made that everyone knew about except me. It felt like they were getting ready to welcome someone, or perhaps getting ready for someone to leave. I filed it away. Another small, sharp piece of data that didn't fit. The perfume, the late nights, the phone, always face down. Margaret's bizarre text. I was a project manager. I was trained to see how the pieces fit, to identify the critical path. Right now, all I had were warning flags. But they weren't forming a picture. Not yet. Until last night, I was in the kitchen, wiping down the already gleaming quartz countertops. It was late, past 10:30. Harper was asleep. The house was silent. The rumble of the garage door opening made me jump. Tyler walked in, briefcase in one hand, suit jacket slung over the other. He looked tired, but his eyes were too bright, too wired. He didn't kiss me hello. He just walked to the kitchen island. I could smell it, that sicky sweet gardenia scent, clinging to the wool of his jacket. Working late, I asked, my voice carefully neutral. He let out a heavy sigh. A performance of exhaustion. You have no idea. This new logistics software is a nightmare. Marge has us on conference calls all night, just nonstop texts and emails. He said the word texts, and as if on cue, he performed the ritual. He pulled his phone from his pocket and placed it on the counter between us. Deliberately, screen down. The clack of glass on stone was the only sound in the room. It was such a small, violent gesture. An act of concealment. Right in front of my face. Everything okay, I asked, looking not at him, but at the phone. His head snapped up. He was instantly defensive, his voice sharp. What? Yeah, it's fine. It's just work texts. Ari, God, don't overreact. Just texting. The words hung there, sterile and false. He was dismissing me, painting me as the hysterical, overreacting wife. He scrubbed a hand over his face, then walked past me, brushing my shoulder without making eye contact. I'm going to shower, he muttered, and headed up the stairs. I stayed in the kitchen for a long time, staring at that black rectangle. It was a locked door, and he was telling me I was crazy for wondering what was behind it, but I knew one thing, if it was really just texting. Why did it have to be face down the just texting lie sat between us for 3 days? It was a rotting, stinking thing in the middle of our perfect suburban life. I watched Tyler perform his role as busy husband, his phone perpetually face down, and I performed my role as understanding wife, smiling and coordinating playdates for Harper. The air in our house was thick with unspoken words, with the gardenia perfume I now smelled everywhere, even when he wasn't home. Then came Tuesday. I was at my desk in the home office, the room my father had designed with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, deep in a branding strategy for a new client. It was 9:15 in the morning. My phone buzzed. It was my cousin, Maya Lawson. I smiled, expecting a text about a new freelance client she'd landed. Instead, it rang again and again. 4 missed calls in less than a minute. A cold prickle went down my spine. Maya is not a frantic person. She's 28, a freelance accountant, and the most meticulously organized, discreet person I know. She lives and dies by her Google Calendar and double-entry bookkeeping. She does not call 4 times. I picked up on the 5th ring. Maya. Is everything okay, Ari? Her voice was a reedy whisper, like she'd been running. Ari, I can't talk. I can't talk on the phone. Are you home? Are you alone? Yes. Harper's at school. Tyler's at work. Maya, what's wrong? You're scaring me. I'm coming over, she said, and the line clicked dead. 20 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find her looking like a ghost. Her skin was pale and blotchy, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen behind her stylish wire-framed glasses. She was clutching the strap of her canvas tote bag like it was a life preserver, her knuckles white. She looked less like the put-together professional I knew and more like a terrified kid. My God. Maya. What happened? I pulled her inside, shutting the door. Are you hurt? Did someone… No, Can I have some water? I led her to the kitchen, to the granite island where Tyler's phone always sat face down. She stared at the spot, then quickly looked away, as if it had burned her. I handed her a glass of water, and her hands were shaking so badly that the glass rattled against her teeth. Maya, talk to me. She took a shuddering breath and put the glass down. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I live with Savannah, she whispered, as if I didn't know. My sister, Savannah Ryder, 29 years old, the baby of the family, a home decor influencer who had built a modest following on Instagram by painting everything beige and calling it minimalist luxury. Okay, I said slowly, confused. Did you two have a fight? No. Ari, I don't know how to tell you this. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were brimming with tears. I've been hearing things, for a few weeks, whispers, her locking her door to take video calls, which she never does, laughing, this breathy, weird laugh. My stomach tightened. What are you talking about last night? Maya said, her voice cracking. She came home around 8. She was all dressed up. She went into her room, locked the door. I was in the living room, trying to finish a client's payroll, and she was talking so loud, laughing. I thought it was weird, so I turned off the TV. She paused, pressing her lips together. I heard a man's voice. He sounded familiar. I couldn't place it at first, and they were flirting, hard. I got up. I walked closer to her door. I know, I shouldn't have, but I had this awful feeling. Ari, I just stood there, my own hands suddenly cold. I said nothing. She was talking about decor. Maya said, the details so bizarre it made my head spin, about paint swatches and new furniture, and then I heard her say it, clear as day. She said, I promise you, after the papers are done, I'll decorate that house for you. There won't be a trace of her left. The blood drained from my face. What papers? What house? Maya was crying openly now, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. I didn't understand. Until he spoke. His voice was clearer this time. And, Ari, it was Tyler. I think I may have stopped breathing. It wasn't a question. It wasn't an accusation. It was a fact, stated quietly in my sun-drenched kitchen. No, I whispered. Yes, Maya said, her voice firming. It was him. I recognized the laugh. And then I heard what he said back to her. He sounded annoyed. He said, I'm pushing her out gently. Don't rush me. It's just texting. You're overreacting. Just texting. The same 2 words he had used on me. The lie he had practiced. It was a cold, efficient blade, and it slid right between my ribs. I gripped the edge of the counter to keep from falling. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't some girl from his office. It was Savannah, my sister, the one I'd helped, the one whose college design classes I paid for when she decided she wanted to be an artist, the one I'd let borrow my car for months. The scent, that cloying, sweet gardenia. It was Savannah's signature perfume. She'd worn it since high school. They're planning to take your house. Ariana, Maya said, the words tumbling out of her now. It's not just that they're together. They are planning to kick you out. I heard him. He was talking about the mortgage, and she was talking about the decor. It's evil. She was right. It wasn't just adultery. It was a conspiracy. My husband and my sister. Planning to steal my home. My father's home. She did it again this morning. Maya rushed on, wiping her nose on her sleeve. She was on FaceTime with one of her influencer friends. She was laughing. She said, Tyler is finally liberating the lake house. That's what she called it. The lake house. And she said the Big Hill family barbecue was going to be the official announcement. she said. Margaret is so excited to finally have me in the family officially. Margaret's text. Lots of wonderful changes. They weren't just planning it. The entire Hill family was in on it. They were planning my replacement. I looked at Maya, who seemed to be shrinking, bracing for me to collapse, to scream, to break down. I felt the shockwave pass through me, a cold, chemical rush that turned my blood to ice water. The grief was there, a deep, hollow ache, but something else rose up faster. Strategy. I felt my spine straighten. The manager in me, the one who handles crises for a living, took the wheel. The tears that had been threatening to blind me simply evaporated. My voice, when I finally spoke, was so calm it surprised me. "Does she know you heard?" I asked. Maya's eyes widened. She shook her head. Fast. "No. God. No." I ran into my room. I've been in there all morning, pretending to be sick. I snuck out when she went to get a smoothie. "Good," I said. My voice was low. "Then you're still sick. You go back home, you get in your bed, and you haven't seen me. You don't know anything." Maya stared at me. The fear was still in her eyes. But it had changed. Before, she was scared for me. Now, I think she was scared of me. She saw the shift. She saw the wife disappear, and someone else, someone much colder, take her place. "Ari, what are you going to do?" I walked over to her and put my hands on her shoulders. "I'm going to handle it. You did the right thing. You did the brave, hard, loyal thing, and I will never, ever forget it." I pulled her into a hug, a real one, and I could feel her shaking. "I'm so sorry. Ari," she whispered into my shoulder. "Don't be," I said, pulling back and looking her straight in the eyes. "You didn't do this." They did. I walked her to the door. "Go. Be sick. And don't speak to me about this again. Not on the phone, not in a text. We'll talk when it's over." She nodded, gave me one last terrified look, and hurried down the walk. I closed the door. I double-locked it. I stood in my hallway for a full minute, the silence of the house pressing in. This wasn't a marriage problem anymore. This wasn't a fight about a man's wandering eye. This was an attack. They were coming for my daughter's home. They were trying to erase me from my own life, from my father's legacy. They had declared war. They just didn't know I was going to fight back. My first instinct, the human one, was to grab a baseball bat from the garage, find my sister, and go primal. I wanted to scream, to throw plates, to demand answers. I wanted to see the look on Tyler's face when I shoved Maya's testimony in it. But the manager in me, the part of my brain that builds critical paths and assesses risk, slammed the brakes. If I confronted them now, what would happen? They would deny it. They would call Maya a liar, isolating me from my only ally. Savannah would delete every message, every post. Tyler would lock down his phone, change his passwords, and any digital trail would vanish. He would move assets so fast my head would spin. He and his lawyer would file for divorce on their terms, painting me as unstable and paranoid. No, confrontation was a trap. It was what they expected the hysterical wife to do. I did not scream. I did not cry. I went into my office, closed the door, and opened a new project file on my laptop. The project name was BBQ. My first task was data acquisition. That afternoon, I told my team I had a dentist appointment. I drove to a big box electronics store and bought a 2-terabyte external hard drive. I paid in cash. When I got home, I unpacked it and plugged it into my MacBook Pro. Tyler and I shared an Apple ID. We'd set it up years ago for convenience, to share photos of Harper in a family calendar. He was a creature of habit and not particularly tech-savvy. He'd never unlinked his devices. He still thought iMessage was just something that happened on his phone. He was wrong. Every message he sent and received, every just texting way, was dutifully appearing in the Messages app on my laptop. I opened the app. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hand was steady. I scrolled. It took me less than 30 seconds to find her name, pinned to the top. Savannah. I didn't read. Not yet. I opened a screen recording app. I set the parameters to record my entire screen and started it. Then, and only then, did I click her name. I let it scroll, capturing weeks, then months, of their harmless words, the flirting, the plans, the logistics, the gardenia emojis. I recorded every thread, saved the file, and then dragged it to the new, secure hard drive. I ejected the drive and hid it in a fireproof safe in my closet, behind my high school yearbooks. Next, I needed a physical timeline. I took a legal pad and a pen, and I sat at the kitchen island, the scene of the crime. I wrote down the date, Tuesday, May 6th. Maya's visit, then I worked backward. Saturday, May 3rd. Tea, home late, 11:15 p.m. Gardenia sent. Friday, April 25th. Margaret's changes text. Monday, April 21st. Tea, face down phone. Just texting comment. I cataloged every late night, every flimsy excuse, every conference call for the past 6 months. The pattern wasn't just clear, it was a blaring, fluorescent red arrow pointing straight at my sister. That night, Tyler came home at a reasonable hour. Just before 7, he was trying. He brought flowers, which he set on the counter with a flourish, as if to say, "See, I'm a good husband." They were carnations. I hate carnations. "Smells good in here," he said, kissing my cheek. His lips were dry, and he avoided my eyes. "Making your favorite," I said, stirring the pot roast. I smiled. It was the smile I used in client meetings when a junior exec asks a stupid question. Patient, a little tight. We sat down to eat. Harper chattered about her day. I watched Tyler. He was performing, too. He asked Harper about her math test. He complimented the food. He was laying the groundwork for his innocence, building a new baseline of normalcy. Then, he made his move. "Hey," he said, putting his fork down. "I know I've been distant these last few weeks. This logistics deal has been brutal." "It sounds it," I said, my voice soft. "Yeah, and I know you were weirded out by me texting the other night." He forced a laugh. "I just didn't want you to worry. It was nothing. I was just texting Savannah about the barbecue. You know, family stuff, making sure we're all on the same page for Mom. It was a gift." He had just handed me a prepackaged, documented lie. He had put his just texting and Savannah and family stuff all in the same neat, flammable box. I reached across the table and put my hand on his. His skin was warm. I felt a wave of nausea, but I pushed it down. "Oh, honey, of course, family stuff. I get it. I'm sorry I was sensitive. I've just been stressed." He visibly relaxed. The tension went out of his shoulders. He squeezed my hand. "My sweet, understanding Ari," he said, smiling. He'd taken the bait. He thought I was the same, predictable, slightly insecure wife he'd been steamrolling for a year. He thought he was smarter than me. The next day at work, I walked over to the IT department. My friend Jess, a genius with code and a lifesaver with faulty projectors, was on her third energy drink of the morning. "Hey, Jess," I said, leaning on her cubicle wall. "Quick question. I'm planning Harper's birthday party, and I want to do one of those cheesy photo slideshows. We're thinking of doing it in the backyard. What's the easiest way to project from a laptop to an outdoor screen? Like one of those big inflatable ones." She lit up. If there's one thing Jess loves, it's a technical problem. "Oh, easy. You don't want an inflatable one. The fan's too loud. You want a standalone screen. I've got a projector in the AV closet you can borrow. Just make sure you have the right adapter for your laptop. We'll test it here first. HDMI to USB-C, and you'll need an external speaker. The built-in ones are trash." "You're a lifesaver," I said. The technical path was now clear. That weekend, I told Tyler I was taking Harper to my mom's for the afternoon. He was relieved. He probably had a video call scheduled with his decorator. At Mom's, I gave Harper the iPad and sent her to the den. "Mom," I said, "I need to get into Dad's old safe." She looked at me, her eyes knowing. We hadn't discussed Tyler, but my mother sees everything. "It's in the study. The code is still your birthday." I went to the study, to the heavy steel safe hidden behind a framed photo of my parents. I spun the dial 1, 1, 7, 8, and the heavy door clicked open. Inside, past old bonds and my father's watch, was a thick manila envelope. The Hill Rider Family Trust. I sat at his desk and pulled out the 100-page document. I didn't need to read the whole thing. I knew what I was looking for. I flipped to page 28, Section 4B. Rights of residency for non-blood spousal beneficiary. My father's lawyer had been a poet. The language was precise. The right of a spouse to reside in the property was contingent upon the faithful execution of the marital contract. It explicitly stated that any act of adultery, especially an act willfully intended to threaten or supplant the primary beneficiary's right to residency, would result in the immediate and permanent termination of all spousal rights to the property, as if the marriage had never existed. I read it 3 times. Adultery wasn't just grounds for divorce. It was grounds for an eviction. He wouldn't just lose the house, he would be a trespasser. I took pictures of the relevant pages with my phone, put the document back, and locked the safe. I was playing the long game now. I was calm. I cooked. I kissed my husband goodbye in the morning. I sent a single, encrypted text to Maya from a new, prepaid burner app. Heard from Savannah. Let her talk. Let her brag. I need her to think she's smarter than me. Stay safe. Delete this. There were moments. One night, in the shower. The rage hit me so hard I had to sit down on the tile, the hot water beating on my back. I wanted to call Savannah. I wanted to hear her voice, to ask her. How could you? I paid for your tuition. I held your hand when you had your appendix out. How could you? But I held it in. I finished my shower. I got out, dried off, and put on lotion. Patience. Some games require patience. That night, Tyler was in the garage, supposedly organizing his tools. He'd installed a new camera system out there last year, a fancy, motion-activated one. He was obsessed with it, always checking the feed on his phone. I watched him from the kitchen window, tinkering with a workbench. I pulled up the camera app on my own phone. I had the master account. I watched him on the live feed. He wasn't organizing. He was sitting on a stool, head down, smiling at his phone, texting. I zoomed in. I couldn't see the screen, but I didn't need to. I knew who he was talking to. He looked up, right at the camera he had installed, completely unaware that I was on the other end, watching him. You forgot something, Tyler, I whispered to my screen. You forgot the master camera is mine. I spent Monday morning managing the most important project of my life. I wasn't just looking for a lawyer. I was looking for the lawyer, the Hill family. I knew. Used Caldwell Myers. They were a sleepy, predictable firm of gray-haired men in Riverbend who had handled Margaret's estate planning and, according to family lore, had gotten Tyler out of a DUI back in college. They were the old guard. Going to them would be like asking the fox to guard the henhouse. So I looked in Charlotte. I searched for high-asset divorce, complex family trusts, and marital fraud. I cross-referenced names with the State Bar Association. I didn't want the lawyer who advertised on benches. I wanted the one who didn't need to advertise at all. I found her on the 4th page of a search, mentioned in a feature article on complex litigation. Janelle Whitmore. Her firm was Whitmore. Gable Knox. Their website was minimalist, all steel gray and white. Their specialty wasn't amicable dissolution, it was complex asset protection and forensic accounting. I booked a 2-hour consultation, and I booked it under my maiden name, Ariana Ryder. Their offices were on the 45th floor of the newest, sharpest building in downtown Charlotte. It was all glass, brushed steel, and abstract art that looked angry. The receptionist offered me sparkling water in a heavy glass bottle. There was no sweet tea here. Janelle Whitmore was not what I expected, but exactly what I needed. She was in her early 40s, with blonde hair pulled back in a severe, perfect ponytail. She wore a navy blue suit that was so perfectly tailored it looked like armor. She didn't walk into the conference room. She entered it, like a general. She didn't smile, didn't offer condolences for the difficult time I must be having. She shook my hand, a firm, dry grip. Ms. Ryder, she said, her voice crisp. I have you for 120 minutes. Let's not waste them. What am I looking at? I sat at the heavy glass table. The city spread out below us. For a second, saying the words out loud felt like a betrayal in itself, but I pushed past it. My husband, Tyler Hill, is having an affair. Janelle was already taking notes on a tablet, her fingers flying. Standard, do you have proof? I do, I said. He says it's just texting. It's never just texting, she muttered, not looking up. Who is the other party? I took a deep breath. My sister, Savannah Ryder. Her fingers stopped. She looked up, really looked at me for the first time. Her expression didn't soften, it sharpened. Your sister? Yes, and they are conspiring to remove me from my home, a home that is not his. They plan to live there together after he divorces me. Okay, Janelle said, leaning forward. This just got interesting. Tell me about the house. The house is mine. It was left to me by my late father, Howard Ryder. It's in an irrevocable trust. A family trust, she said, her voice quickening. You're the primary beneficiary. I am, my daughter, Harper, is the successor. And your husband? He's the non-blood spousal beneficiary. He has residency rights, contingent on the marriage. Did you bring the document? I pulled the folder from my bag. I hadn't brought the original, but I had brought the high-resolution photos I'd taken at my mother's house. I slid my phone across the table. I have the specific clause. Section 4B. Janelle picked up the phone. She read the clause once, then she read it again. A slow, thin smile spread across her face. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a mathematician who has just solved an impossible equation. Ms. Ryder? Ariana, she said, sliding the phone back to me. Do you have any idea what you're holding? I think so, I said. It means he has to leave if he cheats. It means so much more, she corrected, her voice animated, excited. The faithful execution clause is old school, but it's iron. But this part, she tapped the screen. Any act, willfully intended to threaten or supplant the primary beneficiary's right to residency. My God, your father's lawyer was a poet. She stood up and paced to the window, looking out over the city. This wasn't just about cheating, Ariana. This was about exactly this. A spouse conspiring with another party to steal the asset. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state. Normally, even with the trust, he'd argue for a piece. He'd claim marital assets, say he paid for upkeep, that his marital share was built into the property's value. He'd drag this out for years. She turned back to me, her eyes lit. But this clause, combined with the affair, especially with a family member which, I assure you, the court will see as a profound breach of trust, it doesn't just weaken his case, it obliterates it. You are sitting on a legal goldmine, and your husband has no idea he's the canary. I felt a rush of adrenaline so potent it made me dizzy. So what do? Do I serve him? Change the locks? No, Janelle said, walking back to the table. Absolutely not. You do nothing. You let him play his hand. You said they're planning a divorce. That's what Maya heard. He's planning to push me out gently. Of course he is. He's going to come to you with a separation agreement, probably drawn up by his father's buddies at Caldwell Myers. He's going to offer you a generous deal. He'll offer you that little condo downtown, maybe 6 months of support. He'll tell you it's to make things easier and avoid a fight. He and your sister have this all planned out. They'll be there, holding your hand, telling you it's for the best. Her scenario was so accurate it was chilling. And you, she said, pointing a single, manicured finger at me, are going to let him. You are going to be the sad, tired, defeated wife. You are going to look at his terrible, insulting offer. You might even shed a tear. And then, you are going to sign it. I recoiled. Sign it? Sign away my house. You'll be signing a worthless piece of paper, Janelle said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. It's a trap. But it's not for you. It's for him. The moment he presents that document, he is documenting his willful intent to supplant. And the moment he thinks you've signed, he will relax. He will think he's won. He will get sloppy. But won't it be legal? It will be void, because while you're playing the victim, I will be filing a sealed petition with the county court. We will file for divorce on our terms, citing adultery and conspiracy to commit fraud. We will attach the trust document and your evidence. We will get an immediate ex parte restraining order, not against him personally, but against the property. We will freeze the asset. Any agreement he pressured you to sign will be nullified before the ink is dry, because he will have procured it under fraudulent pretenses. She leaned back. We let him build his entire gallows, then we hand him the rope. The evidence, I said, my mind racing. I have the iMessage sync. I've been screen recording everything, saving it to an external drive. Good. Keep doing it, Janelle commanded. Don't change a single password. Don't block your sister. Let him keep digging his own grave. Texts are gold. Photos are diamonds. You get any video? He has a camera in the garage, I said. I have the master account, Janelle's smile returned. This is almost too easy. Just keep collecting. We time it perfectly. We file the motion the day before the barbecue. We let them walk into their own party, thinking it's their victory celebration, when in reality, it's their public execution. I gathered my purse, my hands no longer shaking. The sick, hollow feeling in my stomach wasn't gone, but it had crystallized. It had turned into something cold, heavy, and solid. It felt like steel. I wasn't the woman crying on the shower floor. I wasn't the wife being gently pushed out. I was the project manager, and this was my project. I paid the consultation fee. Janelle walked me to the door. It's a strong case, Ariana, she said, her voice back to its professional monotone. But don't get cocky. Be the victim. Be sad. Let them think they're running the show. Theatrics matter. As I waited for the elevator, I realized that for the first time in months, I wasn't scared. I wasn't a victim being hunted. I was a hunter setting a trap. They weren't kicking me out of my home. I was about to kick them out of my life. Janelle's last words followed me into the elevator, the steel doors sliding shut. They think they're playing chess, but they don't even know the laws on the board. It was a Thursday, almost 2 weeks after I'd met with Janelle, when Tyler finally set the trap. He'd been watching me, waiting for me to break, but I'd been a perfect model of numb, predictable grief. I was quiet, I was tired, and I let him see me cry once, standing at the kitchen sink. I think that's what sealed it. He approached me after Harper was in bed, his voice saturated with a sticky, false sincerity. Ari, he said, sitting beside me on the sofa but not touching me. I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about our happiness. I just looked at him, my face a mask of weary confusion. I just want you to be happy, Ari, he said, his voice dropping. You deserve that. You deserve to be free from all this. This was it. The script Janelle had predicted, word for word. What are you saying, Tyler? I think we both know this isn't working, he sighed, a performance of male suffering. And I don't want to fight. I don't want this to be ugly. So, I've had my family's firm, Caldwell Myers, draw up some papers, just to make things clean. They'll handle everything, make sure you're totally comfortable, no stress, no fighting, just an easy, clean break, pushing me out gently. You've already hired a lawyer. I let my voice crack, a perfect, wounded whisper. Hey, he said, finally placing a hand on my knee, a condescending, dismissive pat. It's not like that. It's for both of us. They're just going to help mediate. It's this Wednesday, 10 in the morning. We go in, we sign, and we can both start to heal. Okay, I whispered, looking down at my hands. If you think it's for the best. I had to physically stop myself from smiling. He was so stupid. On Wednesday morning, I dressed for the part. I was Janelle's sad, tired, defeated wife. I chose a shapeless, beige midi dress, the color of wet sand. I pulled my hair back into a low, severe bun. No makeup. I looked pale, exhausted, and, most importantly, weak. I looked like a woman who was too tired to read the fine print. The offices of Caldwell Myers were everything Janelle's office was not, where hers was glass and steel. This was dark mahogany, oil paintings of dead pheasants, and a thick, burgundy carpet that smelled faintly of old coffee and furniture polish. It was an old boys' club, designed to intimidate. A severe woman who looked like she'd been working there since 1985 led me to a large conference room with heavy dark wood chairs. The room was dominated by a long, polished table that reflected the dim lighting. Tyler was already there, standing at the head of the table. He was wearing his best navy blue suit, the one he wore for big client meetings. He looked powerful, in control, and he wasn't alone. My sister, Savannah, was sitting in a chair against the wall, like a guest on a talk show. She was a pop of bright, aggressive color in the drab room, wearing a tight, lemon-yellow sundress. Her hair was perfectly curled. She looked like she was going to brunch. She jumped up when she saw me, her face a perfect porcelain mask of concern. "Ari," she cooed, rushing over. She tried to grab my hands, but I flinched, pulling them back. "Savannah, what? What are you doing here?" I murmured, playing the confused, ambushed victim. "I'm here for you, silly," she said, her voice dripping with false empathy. "I told Tyler you shouldn't be alone for this. I'm here for moral support, for my big sister." "That's right," Tyler said, nodding gravely. "She's just here to support you." I looked at her, then at him. They were a team. They had rehearsed this. They wanted to be in the room, together, to watch me sign my life away. It wasn't just a legal proceeding. It was a victory lap. A man in an expensive but ill-fitting suit, presumably one of the titular lawyers, walked in. He didn't introduce himself. He just dropped a thick, leather-bound folder onto the table with a heavy thud. "Mrs. Hill," he grunted, sliding the folder toward me. "The separation agreement. As I'm sure your husband has explained, this is a very generous offer, designed to expedite the process." I stared at the cover. I didn't open it. Tyler stepped in, his voice smooth as oil. "Ari, I've had them draw it up so you get the downtown condo, free and clear, and I'm going to provide a full 6 months of spousal support, just to help you get on your feet." The condo, the tiny one-bedroom apartment above a loud pizza place that we'd rented to students for years. 6 months? After 12 years of marriage, it was a joke. It was an insult wrapped in the language of benevolence. "And the house?" I whispered, looking at him. "The house, the investments, the insurance policies. I'll handle all that," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "It's just easier that way. It's too much pressure for you right now." I let the silence hang. I looked at the document. I looked at my husband. I looked at my sister, who was practically vibrating in her chair. A feral, excited energy in her eyes. This was the moment. My hand trembled. A perfect, practiced movement. I reached for the cover of the folder. "Tyler," I said, my voice barely audible, Do you really think this is fair?" He leaned in, his face a mask of pure, condescending pity. "Ari, it's not about fair. It's about moving on. I will always take care of you. You know that. This is just to get the stress over with, so we can both breathe. So you can breathe." I glanced at Savannah. She caught my eye and gave me a tiny, encouraging nod. But behind it, her eyes were shining. She was victorious. She had won. She was already mentally choosing paint swatches. She gave Tyler a quick, electric glance. I saw it. I took a deep, shuddering breath. I looked from him to her. "Okay," I said. The word was a puff of air. If you say so, I trust you." I pulled the folder toward me. I didn't read a single word. I flipped past the asset divisions, the custody waivers. the support schedules. I went straight to the last page, the signature line. The lawyer pushed a heavy, gold-plated pen toward me. I picked it up. My hand was as steady as a surgeon's. Ariana Ryder Hill. I signed my name. The ink was a dark, definitive black. I pushed the folder back across the table. The silence in the room was absolute. Tyler, who had clearly been prepared for hours of crying, fighting, and begging, just stared. He looked at the signature, then at me. He was stunned. It had been too easy. Just like Janelle said, the predator was confused by the stillness of its prey, but the greed, the relief, it was flooding his face. He'd won. Savannah couldn't hold it in. She let out a little squeal and clapped her hands together. "Oh, Ari, that's so wonderful. This is just the best thing for everyone. It really is." She bounced over to Tyler, grabbing his arm and squeezing it. "See, Ty, I told you it would be fine. It's all done. Now we can finally get started." She turned to me, her eyes bright and shameless. "And don't you worry about packing. Ari, I can totally help you. And I was just telling Tyler, I am so excited to help him redecorate the house. It's just so dark and heavy. It needs a woman's touch. You know, something younger, fresher." I stood up, pushing the heavy chair back. My role in this play was over. "Ari, wait," Tyler said, still looking dazed. I'll take you home." "No," I said, my voice flat, empty. "I think I'll just go. I have a lot to do." I picked up my beige purse, a perfect match to my beige dress. I walked out of the dark wood room, past the paintings of dead birds, and into the hallway. I didn't look back. I stepped into the elevator, the heavy doors sliding shut, encasing me in the small, mirrored box. I was alone. I leaned against the brass rail, took a deep breath, and felt the first, true smile in months spread across my face. I pulled out my phone. I had one unread message, sent 2 minutes ago from Janelle. "Order 302B is filed and sealed. The trust is frozen. Anything you sign today is fruit of a poisonous tree. Let him hang himself." I opened a new message to her. My fingers were fast. They took the bait. After the signing, the energy shifted. Tyler, believing he had successfully navigated the rapids and reached calm water, became almost buoyant. He was energized by his victory, his guilt dissolving into relief. He moved out that Friday. He sat Harper down on the sofa, his voice a strained, cheerful tenor I'd never heard him use before. "Daddy has a really big project at work," he explained, his eyes not quite meeting hers. "It's so big. I'm going to need to stay in a special apartment downtown for a little while. It's like a long work trip." I watched him lie to our 8-year-old daughter. I watched her small face crumple in confusion, asking, "Why can't you do the project here?" And I watched him deflect, patting her head, promising to FaceTime every night. I didn't fight him. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. In fact, I helped him pack. I folded his shirts, gathered his toiletries, and even found the shoe trees he liked. I was the very picture of the supportive, defeated wife, just trying to make this amicable transition smooth. He was so grateful. He actually tried to hug me at the door. I turned at the last second so his arms just brushed my shoulders. He left for his new, sterile corporate service apartment, and I locked the door behind him. His absence wasn't a void. It was a relief. It meant I could work. More importantly, it meant he was no longer in the house to monitor my movements. But he was still tethered to his phone. A phone that was, hour by hour, diligently syncing every single one of his triumphant, filthy messages directly to the hard drive hidden in my closet. The true arrogance, however, began 2 days later. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was Savannah. "Hey, Chai. Just wondering when you're planning to start clearing your stuff out. No rush. But I have some ideas for the master closet and need to, see the space." I read the text. Then I read it again. My closet. She was asking me to clear my clothes out of my closet to make room for her ideas. I felt the familiar cold rage rise, but I pushed it down. Before I could formulate a non-committal reply, a new text popped up. Also, I'm bringing a decorator by on Thursday around 10 to measure the windows in the master. Hope that's cool. She wasn't asking. She was informing. She was the new lady of the house. I was just the tenant who hadn't moved out yet. This wasn't just an affair. It was an eviction notice, delivered via text by my own sister. I typed back a simple, "That time doesn't work for me. Sorry." That night, I opened the vault. I poured a glass of wine I didn't drink and sat at my desk. The 2 terabyte hard drive plugged into my laptop. I had the screen recordings. But now I did a deep dive into the full iMessage history. It was worse than I thought. It wasn't just texting. It was sexting. It was explicit. It was vile. They had no boundaries. They talked about things they'd done in hotels, in his car, and things they wanted to do. And then I found it. The centerpiece. The message that made my stomach turn over. It was from Tyler. Sent 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday afternoon. "I want you on my lap," right on her couch, the one she bought with her dad's money. I stared at the words, her couch, her dad's money, the sheer, pointed cruelty of it. He didn't just want my sister. He wanted to defile my father's memory while doing it. I dragged the screenshot into a folder labeled Projector. My sister loved to brag. It was her entire personality. Her influencer brand was built on showing off a life she hadn't yet earned. She often did her home decor live streams from our mother's house, which she claimed had better natural light, but really just had furniture she hadn't paid for. On Saturday, I stopped by Mom's with Harper. While Mom and Harper were in the garden planting, I went to the study. I sat at the family's iMac, the one Savannah always used. It took less than 5 minutes. I installed a simple, hidden screen recording application, set it to record on a continuous loop, and created a rule to have the files automatically upload to a dummy cloud account I'd set up. It took 1 day. On Sunday afternoon, she went live. I got the notification. Lake House Reborn, QA. I didn't watch. I waited. That evening, the file appeared in my cloud drive. She'd finished her stream, but hadn't shut down the computer. The app had kept recording. It captured the 30-minute FaceTime call she made to her influencer friend right after. I put in my headphones, pressed play, and listened to my sister. "I know, right," Savannah was saying, brushing her hair, her voice giddy. "He's so relieved. She just signed, no fight at all. She actually thinks she's getting the downtown apartment and, 6 months of support." Her friend shrieked with laughter. "Honestly," Savannah continued, leaning into her camera, "the lake house is mine. It was always supposed to be. All this drama, and it was just texting. She's just so sensitive. She freaked out over nothing." Just texting. There it was. The lie. The chorus. The word that was going to burn their entire world to the ground. I saved the audio file. Maya checked in, using the secure app. "You okay?" She's gone full psycho. She's creating a TikTok mood board. It's called Lake House Reborn. She told me she's planning to film the before next week, right after the barbecue, and post the after when the reno is done. "Let her," I typed back. "The more she plans, the better for me." Now, it was time for logistics. I couldn't borrow the projector from my office. That was too traceable. I drove to an AV rental shop in the next county. I paid cash for a 3-day rental, one high-lumen outdoor projector, one 20-foot portable white screen with a stand, and one high-capacity Bluetooth speaker. "Big party?" the rental guy asked. "My daughter's surprise birthday," I said, smiling. "She wants to watch movies in the backyard with all her friends." He smiled. "She's a lucky kid." I had the hardware. Now I needed an ally. I needed muscle. Someone I could trust implicitly. My brother, Landon. Landon is 41, a construction foreman, and he has zero patience for Savannah's brand of high maintenance, self-obsessed bullshit. He still saw her as the spoiled brat who'd crashed his first car in high school and lied about it. I called him that night. "Hey, Lon, you coming to the Hill barbecue on Saturday?" I heard him groan. God, do I have to? Margaret's potato salad is terrible, and I know Savannah will be there, probably filming herself. I need you to, I said, keeping my voice light. I'm doing a slideshow for Harper, kind of a family memories thing. I need help setting up the technical stuff. Big screen, projector. You know I'm terrible with that. He was quiet for a beat. He knew my voice. He knew when I was covering. A slideshow. At Margaret Hill's barbecue. Yeah, something special, I said. I need you to come early, just to make sure everything runs smoothly, and to stand next to me. Ari, he said, his voice lowering. What's going on? Just be there. Landon, please, I need my big brother. I'm there, he said instantly. I'll be there at 4. The final piece clicked into place on Monday. A call from Janelle. It's done, she said, her voice brisk. Petition is filed. The trust is officially frozen. The temporary court order 302B is signed and sealed. Any transfer he thinks he's making based on that fraudulent agreement is void. He's just signing in thin air. As of this moment, he has no legal right to that property, and we can prove why. The hearing is set, but the order is effective immediately. That night, for the first time in almost a year, I slept. I slept a full 8 hours, deep and dreamless. The waiting was over. The planning was complete. I wasn't an actress waiting in the wings. I was the director. The stage was set. The script was written, and the actors were all about to take their places. I stood in my kitchen, sipping my morning coffee. I looked at the calendar on the wall. The Hill family barbecue. Saturday, May 24th. I looked at the email from Janelle. The divorce filing, citing adultery and fraud, would be officially served and made effective. Saturday, May 24th. The timing was perfect. It wasn't just good planning, it was fate. The day before the barbecue, my mother-in-law called. Her voice was syrupy, laced with a pity that made my skin crawl. Ariana, dear, she began. I'm just calling to make sure you're still coming tomorrow. I know it must be a transition. We'll be there. Margaret, Harper is excited. Good, she said. And dear, try to come a bit early. It's going to be a full house this year, and I wanted to chat with you, just about. You know, your plans for moving on. Tyler mentioned you found a new place. He hadn't just lied. He'd socialized the lie. He'd briefed his mother. I was no longer family. I was a problem to be managed. A loose end to be tied up before the wonderful changes could begin. I'll be there, Margaret, I said, and hung up. Saturday dawned hot and sticky. Classic North Carolina humidity that felt like a wet blanket. We arrived at Margaret's farm in Riverbend late, around 5:30. The party was in full swing. The massive oak-shaded backyard was filled with at least 60 people, Hill family cousins, old neighbors, Tyler's work friends. The air smelled of smoked pork and fresh-cut grass. Landon had arrived at 4, just as he'd promised. His big construction truck was parked near the side gate. When I pulled in, I saw it near the patio. Angled toward the wide, flat lawn was the 20-foot white screen. It looked professional, almost absurdly large for a family slideshow. Landon was on the patio, checking the connections from the projector to a laptop I'd given him earlier, which held only one single, meticulously edited video file. As Harper ran off to join her cousins in the bounce house, a new addition. Probably for the celebration, I scanned the crowd, and I saw her, Savannah. She had, of course, arrived hours early. She was holding court near the big, brick barbecue pit, dressed in a crisp, white linen jumpsuit. She looked like a bride at her own engagement party. She was surrounded by several of the Hill aunts, who were listening with rapt attention. As I got closer, carrying the pecan pie I'd baked, a perfect picture of a woman holding it all together, I heard her bright, clear voice. "Oh, it's just so dark right now. You know," she was saying, gesturing with her hands. "We're going to open up the kitchen, maybe do some skylights, Just make Tyler's house a little brighter, more welcoming. Tyler's house. One of the aunts, a woman named Carol, clutched her pearls. Oh, honey, that's a big project, but you have such a wonderful eye. I saw Tyler across the lawn. He was working the crowd like a politician, a beer in one hand, his other draped over the back of an uncle's chair. He was all easy charm and relaxed confidence. He was selling his narrative. As I passed a group of his logistics buddies, I heard him say, "Yeah, man, it's sad, but it's for the best. We're splitting amicably, keeping it simple. You know Ariana's even talking to a lawyer. No drama." No drama? The words nearly made me laugh out loud. Then, I heard the exchange that would seal their fate. An older uncle, one of Margaret's brothers, bellowed at Savannah. "Well, what about that lake house, the one Ariana's father built? That's a prime piece of property." Savannah didn't miss a beat. She didn't look flustered. She looked smug. She put a finger to her lips, as if sharing a delicious secret, and winked. "Let's just say, we have our plans. Uncle Ron, we have our plans." I walked onto the patio, and the conversation around Savannah stopped. She turned, her smile faltering for a millisecond when she saw me, not in tears, but in a nice blue sundress, holding a pie. "Ari, you made it," she chirped, coming over to give me a one-armed hug I did not return. "And you brought a pie. How sweet." "Hello, Savannah, Tyler," I said, nodding at him as he joined the circle, his smile tight. "Ari, glad you could come," he said. He was nervous, but his arrogance was stronger. He thought I was here to make a polite, sad exit. He thought I'd come to say my goodbyes to the family that was replacing me. "Landon," I said, walking past them to my brother. "Looks like you got it all set up." "Easy work," he said, his voice a low rumble. He looked at Tyler, then at Savannah, and his disdain was so thick I could feel it. "Just running a test loop for the kids. We'll start the family slide right after dinner." Tyler cleared his throat. "Right. Well, good. The kids will love that." We ate. I made small talk with cousins who didn't know whether to treat me with pity or suspicion. I helped Harper get a plate of food. I was a ghost at my own execution, and it was making the executioners nervous. My calmness was the one thing they hadn't planned for. As the sun began to dip below the tree line, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and orange, Tyler found me. I was standing alone by the screen, pretending to check my phone. He came up beside me, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. He was trying to be kind. It was the cruelest thing he could have done. "Hey, you holding up okay?" I looked at him, his handsome, familiar face, the face of the man who had laid next to me for 12 years, the face of the man who was trying to steal my daughter's inheritance. "I'm fine, Tyler." "Look," he said, scrubbing a hand over his jaw. I know you're sad, and I know you're probably angry, but it's all done. The papers are signed, and I just want you to know." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping. "It wasn't, it wasn't like you think. Savannah and it was just texting. Nothing physical. It never went there. You understand me." This was it, the golden lie, the one he would tell himself, and her, and God, to make it all okay. He was handing me the noose, free of charge. I held his gaze. I let a long second pass. "Just texting?" I asked, my voice perfectly neutral. "Yeah, just texting," he confirmed, nodding, relieved. He thought I believed him. He thought I needed to believe him. "Good," I said, turning away from him to look at the crowd. They were settling into lawn chairs, plates empty, waiting. "In that case, let's get the whole family to confirm." "What?" he asked, confused. I saw Savannah looking at us from the patio. Her eyes narrowed. My calm was finally getting to her. She looked at Tyler, then at the screen, then at me. But the party was in full swing. Guests were laughing, and the first fireflies were starting to blink in the twilight. Landon walked up to the laptop, Ari, you ready for the show? I am, I said, my voice carrying just enough for Tyler to hear. I think it's time for the slideshow. Landon gave me a short, sharp nod. I walked over to the patio table where Margaret had left the portable karaoke microphone, the one she used for family announcements. I picked it up. The small speaker Landon had connected it to gave a soft pop. The backyard went quiet. 60 faces turned to look at me, bathed in the warm glow of the string lights Margaret had hung from the trees. They were all expecting a tearful, grateful speech from the ex-wife. "Thank you all for being here," I started, my voice smooth and clear over the speaker. Margaret asked me to put together some family photos for tonight, and I did. But as I was looking through them, I realized something. I realized that it's time for this whole family to finally know everything. A few confused murmurs. Tyler, standing near the grill, had a forced, tight smile. Savannah, on the patio, had her arms crossed, looking annoyed at the delay. "Landon, can you start the show?" Landon hit the play button. The first image appeared on the 20-foot screen. It was Harper, age 5, on a swing set. The crowd, awed. The next was a group shot from a Hill Christmas, 3 years ago. The next, Tyler, laughing, holding a burnt hot dog at this very barbecue, years back. It was all so normal. I let the fourth photo, a picture of Margaret with all her grandchildren, linger. People relaxed. This was just a family slideshow. Then the screen flickered. Just as I designed it, it went black. And then a new image appeared. It was not a photo. It was a screenshot, a perfect high-definition capture of an iMessage conversation. The name at the very top, centered, was Savannah Ryder. The text bubble was from Ty. Ty. "Can't wait to have you in the lake house once she's gone." The silence was instantaneous. It was so total that I could hear the zzzt of the bug zapper near the woods. Every single person was reading, and then rereading. The text. I saw Margaret Hill's head snap around. Her eyes, wide with disbelief, locking onto Tyler. I saw Savannah's face, a mask of pure, white-hot panic. She looked at the screen, then at me, then at Tyler. I raised the microphone. My voice cut through the heavy, humid air. "Just a few minutes ago," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "my husband, Tyler, assured me that his relationship with my sister was, and I quote, just texting. He told me it was harmless, that it never went anywhere physical." Tyler was taking a step toward me, his hand out. "Ari, what is this? Turn it off." "This isn't funny." "I agree," I said, looking right at him. "It isn't. You said it was just texting. So I thought, as a family, we could all look at this harmless texting together." Landon hit the next slide. It was a longer thread, a cascade of blue and gray bubbles, filled with words that made several of the older aunts gasp. I hadn't included the truly pornographic details, but I had included the intimacy. I had included the hotel room numbers. I had included the dates that matched his overtime. I had included their plans for the future, their private jokes. And then, at the bottom, I included the centerpiece, a message from Tyler, sent from his office on a Tuesday afternoon. "I love that it'll piss her off that it's her own sister." A low groan rippled through the Ryder side of the family. My brother Landon took a half step toward Tyler before I put a hand on his arm. On the hillside, Margaret's face had gone from white to a deep, mottled red. She looked betrayed. "As you can see," I continued, my voice a clinical, cold narration. "It was a little more than just texting. It was a plan to piss me off." "Turn it off." "Ariana," Savannah shrieked, finally finding her voice. She was standing now, her white jumpsuit a beacon in the twilight. "You're insane. You're twisting things. This is private." "I'm so glad you brought that up, Savannah," I said. The screen flickered again. The iMessage thread vanished. Now, it was a video. It was Savannah's face, her perfect influencer makeup, her hair brushed out. She was in her bedroom, on the FaceTime call I had recorded. Her voice, giddy and triumphant, filled the backyard. "He's so relieved," she said to her friend on the call. "She just signed. No fight at all. She actually thinks she's getting the downtown apartment and, 6 months of support." The crowd murmured. They were connecting the dots. The amicable split Tyler had been selling all night was a lie. I let the video play. Savannah's friend's muffled voice asked a question I couldn't make out. "Honestly," Savannah said, leaning into the camera, "that house should have been mine. It was always supposed to be. So what if there's a trust? We'll find a way." And then, the line I'd been waiting for, the one she'd used to justify it all. All this drama, and it was just texting. She's just so sensitive. She freaked out over nothing. I hit pause. I let her face, twisted in a smug, gossipy smile, freeze on the giant screen. "Freaked out over nothing," I repeated into the mic. But the plan wasn't just Savannah's. They were a team. They had a lawyer Tyler was very confident in. The screen went black. Then, a new file opened. It was just an audio wave, the kind you see in a sound editor. It was the audio from the garage camera. Tyler's voice, unmistakable, filled the silence. "My lawyer will clear her out of the way. Don't worry, babe. He's got it all handled." She didn't even read it. She just signed. This was the kill shot. This was the proof of fraud, the conspiracy, the willful intent Janelle had talked about. This was the audio of my husband, bragging to my sister about how he'd tricked me into signing away my own home. Tyler looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. He was staring at the screen, then at his mother, then at me. His mouth was open. No sound was coming out. I hit the stop button on the remote in my hand. The screen went white, a huge blank beacon that illuminated the 60 horrified, shocked, and furious faces staring back at me. I took a deep breath. "This was never about two adults separating amicably, like he told you all tonight," I said, my voice ringing with a finality that echoed off the trees. "This was never about no drama. This was about greed. This was about my husband and my own sister, Savannah Ryder, conspiring together to fraudulently kick me out of the house my father left for me. The house he left for my daughter." I looked at Tyler. I looked at Savannah. They were frozen, two statues in the spotlight of their own treachery. They lied to their lawyer, they lied to their family, and they lied to me. So just to be clear, to everyone, I am not going anywhere. The silence that followed was heavy, like a physical weight. It was broken by one of the oldest Hill aunts, a woman I'd only ever heard speak about pecan recipes in church. She shook her head, her eyes fixed on her nephew. "Jesus, Tyler." The audio of Tyler's voice bragging about how I didn't even read it echoed across the silent backyard and then clicked off. The resulting silence was heavier, more profound than any noise. The 20-foot screen glowed with a pure blank whiteness, illuminating 60 faces frozen in disgust and shock. Tyler was the first to move. He looked like a man who had been underwater too long, surfacing with a violent, desperate gasp. "You," he choked out, his face a blotchy, furious red. He pointed a shaking finger at me. "You set me up. This is entrapment. You lied to me." I looked at him, not with rage, but with something colder. Pity, maybe. I walked calmly to the patio table where my beige purse sat, the one I had carried into his lawyer's office. I picked up the microphone again. "No, Tyler," I said, my voice cutting cleanly through the humid night air, silencing the murmurs. "I didn't set you up. I didn't lie to you. I just stopped telling you the truth. You were right, though. Papers were signed on Wednesday. You signed your fraudulent, pathetic offer, and then I went and filed mine." I reached into the purse. My hand didn't tremble. I pulled out a thick, official-looking manila folder. I held it up for all of them to see, like a bullfighter showing the ear of the bull. "This," I announced, "is Court Order 302B. It was filed, sealed, and executed by a Superior Court judge yesterday. It became effective at 9 o'clock this morning, Saturday, May 24th. I saw Tyler's lawyer buddies in the crowd stiffen. They knew what that meant. It confirms the Hill Rider family trust. My father's trust is frozen. It confirms my sole, exclusive, and immediate right to residency in the Fairview property, and it invalidates, completely and totally, any document you pressured me to sign based on the evidence of marital fraud, adultery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. I paused, letting the legal terms sink in. The evidence you all just saw. I flipped to the last page, the one Janelle had highlighted in bright yellow. I'd like to read one specific clause, just so everyone is clear on the next steps. I held the paper up, my voice as steady as a news anchor's. Pursuant to the preliminary findings of spousal malfeasance and conspiracy, any attempted transfer of assets, occupation, redecoration, or physical entry onto the property by any party not of the Rider bloodline will be considered criminal trespassing and subject to immediate removal by law enforcement. I lowered the document, and my eyes, which had been scanning the crowd, landed, hard, on my sister. That part is for you. Savannah, it means don't bother bringing your decorator on Thursday. You're not welcome. You can't, Tyler roared. It was a primal scream of pure, narcissistic rage. He finally lunged forward, but Landon, who had been standing silent beside me this whole time, took one massive step forward. He didn't touch Tyler. He just stood there, a 6'3" wall of muscle. He was a construction foreman, and he looked it. Get out of her way, Hill, he growled. Savannah, finally understanding that her plan, her mood board, her lake house reborn, was evaporating, found her voice. It was a high, thin shriek. She's lying. She's bluffing. Look at her. She was pleading with the Hill family now, with the aunts who had been eating up her decor plans an hour earlier. Tyler's lawyer said the trust was nothing. He said the house would be his. He said it. Ah, yes, the lawyer, I said. I picked up the remote. The one you based your entire future on, the one Tyler was bragging about in the garage. I aimed the remote and pressed play one last time. Tyler's voice, confident and smug, filled the yard again. My lawyer will clear her out of the way. Don't worry, babe. He's got it all handled. She didn't even read it. She just signed. I clicked it off. The humiliation was absolute. He had not only been caught, he had been caught bragging about how he was going to commit the crime. Margaret Hill, who had been sitting frozen like a statue, finally stood up. Her chair scraped back on the stone patio with a sound like a scream. She was not looking at me. She was looking at her son. Her voice, when it came, was not loud. It was low, vibrating with a shame and fury so profound, it was terrifying. Tyler, she said, you have embarrassed this family. You have brought this filth, to my home, on my lawn. Her voice cracked. You fix this. You get her. She gestured dismissively at Savannah. And you get out. Do not, Tyler, do not make me call the police to my own home. That won't be necessary. Margaret, I said, my voice softening for her. We're leaving. I turned my gaze back to the two of them. They were huddled together near the grill, a pair of shipwrecked conspirators. But let's be crystal clear. If either of you sets one foot on my property in Fairview after today, you will be arrested for trespassing. I have a copy of the order. My lawyer, Janelle Whitmore, has a copy. The county police have a copy. I held up my cell phone. And in case you're wondering if you can just delete the messages, don't bother. Every text, every file, every second of audio, it's on the cloud. It's in my lawyer's vault. It is permanent. Landon put his hand on my back, a gesture of finality. Let's go. Ari, the Rider family is taking you home. Neither of you, his voice dropped to a growl, directed at Tyler, are to go to that house. The shouting, the anger, the tension. It had finally broken through the noise of the bounce house. Harper. She ran out from the group of wide-eyed children, her face pale and tear-streaked. Mommy, what's wrong? Why is everyone yelling? In 1 second, the projector, the lawyers, the rage, it all vanished. I dropped the microphone onto the table. I dropped the folder. I knelt, my arms open. Oh, baby, I'm right here, I said, all the steel draining from my voice, replaced by the one thing that mattered. It's okay. It's all over. We're just going to go home now. She buried her face in my neck, and I held her, stroking her hair. I was not the hysterical, crying wife. I was the mother, and I had protected her. I had protected her home. When I stood up, holding Harper on my hip, the scene had changed. Tyler was looking around, his eyes wild, searching for an ally, for one person to back him up, but his family, the Hills, wouldn't meet his gaze. His mother had her back to him, staring at her ruined flower bed. His aunts were whispering among themselves. And then I saw them. The cell phones, his cousins, his work friends. They weren't just watching, they were recording his face, Savannah's tears, the entire, spectacular, public downfall. Savannah was leaning against the grill, her white jumpsuit now smudged with soot. Her face was a ruin of running mascara and rage. She looked at me, her eyes pure acid. It was the house, she spat, her voice a raw hiss. This is all just because of that stupid, ugly house. I held Harper a little tighter. I looked at my sister, the one I used to braid hair with, the one whose design classes I had paid for. And I gave her the last, final truth. No, Savannah, I said, my voice clear and final. It's because of the betrayal. As I held Harper, her body warm and solid against my hip, I heard a new sound, the sound of gravel crunching under heavy tires. At the end of Margaret's long driveway, a set of headlights cut through the twilight, and then the unmistakable red and blue flash of a patrol car's light bar pulsed, washing the horrified crowd in waves of color. A county sheriff's vehicle, marked with the official seal, pulled to a stop. A deputy, a tall man with a calm, tired face, stepped out. He didn't run, he just stood, his hand on his belt, surveying the scene, the crowd, the giant screen, the two people huddled by the grill, and me, standing with my brother and my child. This was the final piece Janelle had put in place. I walked toward him, a clear and deliberate path. Landon stayed by my side. Deputy Collins? I asked, though I knew exactly who he was. Janelle had been specific. Ma'am, he said, his eyes scanning the yard. We received a notice from your legal counsel, Ms. Whitmore, about a potential civil matter escalation at 912 Country Lane. Said there might be a high conflict disturbance. The disturbance is over. Deputy, I said, my voice clear. But the conflict is just beginning. I am Ariana Hill. This is my husband, Tyler Hill, and my sister, Savannah Ryder. I handed him the crisp, clean copy of the court order from my folder. This is Order 302B. Effective this morning, it grants me exclusive and immediate residency of my property in Fairview and bars both of them from the premises, pending a hearing on adultery and fraud. I then pointed to the blank screen. And that was just the evidence. We were just concluding a presentation of the evidence that secured the order. I believe you've arrived just in time to ensure they understand the court's decision. Collins took the order. He was a professional. He didn't read the whole thing, just the docket number, the names, and the final judgment. He read it under the glow of his flashlight, then looked up. He nodded once, his expression unreadable. He walked past me, past the shocked family, his boots heavy on the grass, until he was standing in front of Tyler and Savannah. They looked like terrified children. Mr. Hill, Ms. Ryder. His voice was a deep, official boom that needed no microphone. I have a legal court order here, signed by a judge. It says you are not to go to the property at 420 Lakeview Drive in Fairview. This is not a request. This is a legal mandate. He shone his light on their faces, not aggressively, but just enough. Right now. This is a civil matter. You attempt to enter that property. You attempt to contact Ms. Hill in a way she deems threatening, and this becomes a criminal matter. This is your one and only verbal warning. The next time I am called out there, I am not mediating. The next time, it will be handcuffs. Do you both understand me? Savannah could only nod, her sobs silent. But Tyler, whose entire world had just been detonated, had one last, pathetic, narcissistic bomb to throw. She can't do this, he yelled, his voice cracking. He wasn't talking to Collins. He was pleading with the crowd. I have nowhere to go. She's kicking me out. I signed the apartment over to her. I have nowhere to sleep tonight. A few people murmured. He was trying to paint me as the villain, the cruel wife throwing her poor husband into the street. I almost smiled. I took 2 steps forward, shifting Harper on my hip. That's not true, Tyler, I said, my voice light, almost conversational. So everyone had to lean in to hear. You're right. You did sign over the downtown apartment, the tiny, 1-bedroom place above the pizza joint. The one you so generously left me in that agreement you just bragged about. I let the silence sit. So, yes, I continued, you do have a place to go. If I let you, you can, of course, ask my permission to stay there tonight. I looked right at him. His eyes were wide, desperate. He was actually about to ask. But I don't let you, I finished. The air went out of him. It was a complete, total, and public defeat. Savannah, realizing her protector was useless, turned to the last person she thought held any power. Margaret, she whispered, stumbling toward my mother-in-law. Mrs. Hill, please, I can't, he said. Please, can we just stay in a guest room, just for tonight? Margaret Hill, who had been standing silent by her back door, looked at the sobbing, soot-covered girl who had almost stolen her son. Her face was granite. You have shamed this family, Savannah, Margaret said, her voice dead. You stood in my yard, you ate my food, and you conspired to ruin my grandchildren's home. You brought this filth here. I need quiet in my house. She turned, walked inside, and shut the door. The snick of the lock turning was the loudest sound in the yard. They were truly homeless, with 60 of their closest friends and family watching. Let's go, Ari. Landon's voice was a low rumble by my ear. He put his arm around me. Maya had appeared on my other side, her face pale but her eyes shining with a fierce, proud loyalty. She took the now empty pie plate from my other hand. They were my escort, my honor guard, walking me and Harper away from the wreckage. We walked past the tables, past the stunned faces, past the cell phones that were still, silently, recording. At the edge of the driveway, I stopped. I turned back. I looked at the crowd, at the aunts, the uncles, the cousins. I looked at Margaret's house, dark now. Just so everyone is clear, I said, and my voice carried, strong and final. I am not leaving any house. I'm not the one who has to go. The people who broke their vows, the people who attacked my father's legacy, the people who tried to steal my daughter's home, they are the ones who have to leave. I turned, and I didn't look back. I buckled a sleepy, confused, but safe Harper into her car seat. I got into the driver's side of my white SUV. Landon was in his truck in front of me, Maya in her car behind, a convoy. As I pulled out of the long gravel driveway, I looked in the rearview mirror. I could see the scene I was leaving. Tyler, standing alone in the middle of the lawn, his hands on his hips, a man without a plan, without a home, without a family. I saw Savannah, crumpled on the grass, a broken, stained thing, and behind them, the 20-foot screen, still glowing. It was blank. It was an empty stage. The curtains down after the play had finished. The show was over. I faced forward. I put the car in drive. I pulled out my phone and sent one last text message to Janelle Whitmore. Show's over. File the rest. I hit send and turned left, toward Fairview, toward the house that was finally, completely, and only mine. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to connect. Please make sure to subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories. Like this video, and if you can, support us by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.